Welcome back to another episode of the Link Podcast, presented by Electra Link. I'm your host, Bree Pettit, and today's episode features the founder and CEO of Electra Link, Ernie D'Antoni, and our president, Rob Stanton. They're both joining me today to talk about what the future of Electra Link looks like. Both of you, welcome back to the Link Podcast. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing very well. I'm glad to be here again.
Good.
Doing good, Bree. Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, since you both have already been on, we're going to jump right into it. You guys kind of know how it goes. With 5 office locations across Texas, how do you guys ensure that Electra Link's mission, vision, and values are being upheld across the company?
The key thing to make sure that the mission statement gets pushed out is having a key management team in place. And that's one of the things I think we've pretty much excelled at, is having the right individual in the right spot that believes in what we're doing and takes our mission and pushes it forward. Without them, we can't get it out to all the people that we have employed.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've done a very good job at it. I think Rob's done a good job getting our mission statement pushed out.
Yeah, I agree, Ernie. I mean, the general manager plays such a key role in that, right? Since we're geographically challenged, we're not all sitting here in Houston. So our general manager play a key role in that. We also, as we talk about quality and consistency and integrity, we want every employee to electrically, singing the same tune, but it's a challenge to get that done. But from a quality perspective, we've got full-time quality control people to make sure that we're getting the things done. We got full-time safety people making sure from the safety perspective it's all done. And then from the value set, it's pushed down through every level of our business, and it's talked about consistently. So it just becomes second nature.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes it really easy is the longevity of the people that we have here. Most of our management and a lot of our workers, they've been here 10, 15, 30, 35 years, and then there's some of them pushing 38 years with us. And that really helps taking what we've started with back in 1985 and moving forward. And we're consistently improving on that. They get it, they believe it, and it makes it really easy for the upper management to push it out.
Good. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, how do you guys approach decision making, and what factors do you consider when making important business decisions?
Yeah, so Bree, I mean, the decision-making process here at Electra Link, I mean, because we are owned by one person and we have a pretty tight executive team, when we get into this decision-making process, it's more of a conversation. And every conversation results in, or don't necessarily result, but the process goes through like, okay, how's it going to affect us all the way from the top of the bottle from a financial place?
Mhm.
And then how's it affect each and one of our employees, right? One of our founding values is trying to build a culture at Electra Link that's family based, and so we take that into consideration on all the decision making process, and so when we're making these important business decisions, I mean, we not only look at it from a financial standpoint, but we look at it from a culture standpoint as well.
Okay.
A lot of the times I talk about a win-win-win situation. Number one, the company has to win on that, but our employee has to win also in those decisions, and perhaps the most least and probably one of the most important ones, our customer has to win on that too.
Yeah.
So the decision, like Rob just alluded to, there's a lot that's put into it. I think one of the key factors that we've been really good at is not taking just our way and saying this is going to be the way we do it. We want to hear from our employees. We employ our employees for their ideas, their opinions. Just because a guy rolls an extension cord out there, he might have a really good idea. And I think one of the key things is not to be so set in stone that you're afraid to take somebody else's opinion. You know what? Let's try that. That works.
Yeah.
We are really good at acknowledging that what we first started out is not working and we need to change it. And I think a lot of the key is to be able to change on the fly sometimes. Because, we're not the smartest. We don't know everything. but what we do know is we know people that do know, and
Yeah.
it's being able to listen to them and take that value and put it in place.
The executive team, I mean, Brady Lockridge and Ernie and I have thousands of hours of cell phone conversations driving between cities, all of us in different places, and those conversations that we have while we're constantly in motion seem to be the most productive.
It's funny, we don't have the big boardroom set down. Here's the schedule of what we're going to talk about. A lot of it is when we have time between cities or between appointments, we get on the phone and we throw it out there. And some of it is, well, hey guys, that didn't work. What are we going to do? And we usually come up with something that does work. We'll massage it and put it in place till we get it to where it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah, that's good.
And I've always been really pleased with the team being able to do that. No one is just so set in stone and goes my way or the highway, because that just doesn't make for a good, happy workforce. Sometimes you have to do it this way, but most of the time we're able to be able to massage it into what really works for everybody.
Yeah, Ernie's always said in those meetings, he said, I have a trump card if I need it, but right, let's try to come up with a solution together.
And Rob and I, and you can allude to it, Rob, there's a lot of times we get together and he'll look at me and go, well, we tried it your way, boss. And that wasn't working. So now what are we going to do? And so we make the move and we'll get it till it moves. The main thing is what we do is we don't settle for something that's not 100%. When it gets to 100%, then we're okay with it. 90%, there's 10% out there that's not good. So.
Yeah, that's really good. What advice would you guys have when it comes to implementing company-wide changes?
Well, we've learned a lot over the years, and some of that's from making mistakes. And I think the advice that I have is if you're going to put a company-wide change in place, let it sit there long enough to see the outcomes before you start messing with it. Right?
Okay.
I think that's for me. It's certainly one of the things that I've learned is that everybody wants instantaneous results, and that's not how a business of our style and size that's not how it works, right? So
Yeah.
one thing I've learned and advice that I would give others is just to make sure that you leave it in place long enough to make sure that you see the outcomes, and then positive or negative, looking at those outcomes and then making a decision, whether you need to, turn the rudder a little bit and adjust, do whatever you got to do to get it right. Because the first time out of the gate, you're not going to get everything just perfect. But don't be so stuck in your ways that you're not willing to adapt. But don't do it too quickly. Make sure that you're able to see the outcomes before you start making changes to those. I mean, because it affects a lot of people when you're making company-wide changes, and you got to get everybody moving in the same direction on the same page. And so it takes time, and sometimes our personalities, society just wants instantaneous results, and when you're in business, it don't always work.
Hey, you're absolutely right, Rob. The thing that I've always tried to do is I ask myself the question: have I given all the tools to the individual or the decision you made to make it successful? If I've done that, then I can make an educated decision not to do it or to keep on going with it. If you have your team bite off on it and believe what you want to change, God, it makes it so much better on everybody. So it's getting that team of individuals, and it can be all the way from the guy in the field. I talked about the guy that rolls the extension cord out. He's important to us, all the way to the individual that's running a project or the management team that's inside. Everybody has to believe in what we're doing, and then it makes that change go along a lot easier. So I guess my advice is to step back, think about what the change is, how it affects each individual person down the line, and then make your decision going forward. It's hard. It's hard because change is one of the hardest things to get across to a team of individuals. Because most people don't like change; they like doing what they've been doing for years. So
Yeah. Yeah, very true. How do you balance the need to deliver short-term results while also investing in long-term growth?
I mean, from my perspective, first of all, Brady Lockridge, our CFO's not here. She has a different answer than I do from an operations standpoint. But I've always taken it like we set goals and objectives for every year, and they're always the objectives are always chasing the goal. And so those are long term results that you're looking for, and sometimes the short term results uh, don't equal what you're after, right? So if we're trying to obtain an objective, sometimes it costs money to make money, right? And so
Yeah.
sometimes we have to know up front that sometimes those short term results are not going to be there, but we're in it for the long game because we have an objective, we have a goal that we're chasing. Uh, and so in that aspect, sometimes those short term results are being able to stomach, the results until you get where you're going. The other part of that is, being in the operations game for so long, and I've learned a lot of this from Ernie over the years, is you take care of the people
Mhm.
and you manage the project and the financial side of it will work itself out, right? So
Okay.
you gotta, and you want to talk about short-term results, manage what's in front of you today, right?
Mhm.
Manage the money that you have in your house. And if you focus on your teams and focus on the project itself, then most of the time the money will work itself out. And so
Okay.
don't focus so much in the short term on the bottom line, but focus on your people, focus on what you have in front of you as far as your projects go. And then those short term results will typically work themselves out.
Okay.
Rob, you put it very well. It goes back to the manage your nickel and dimes and your dollars, take care of yourself. And the short term goal is what's right out in front of you, and it's easy to reach out there and get a hold of that and manage that. The long term goal is more the financial end of it, and moving that needle forward on that. Um, and I don't know what else I could add to what you just said. You kind of hit it on the spot there. Take care of your people, take care of the job. Everything else kind of falls in place.
Okay. How important is it to have a team that you can trust fully to kind of reach those goals?
Oh my goodness, that's a really good question, Rick. Um, you build that over time. I mean, you build that from bringing an individual from the start all the way to today. You earn trust. Okay,
Yeah.
trust is not given until it's earned. And it goes both ways. I mean, you have to entrust the employee, and the employee has to trust you as a manager or an owner
Mhm.
that we're doing the right things. I make decisions on probably 600 lives out there. If you count the employees we have, plus their spouses, plus their kids, there's a lot of decisions that go in that affect that many lives. And when I sit back and I look at that, how many lives did I touch? It's eye opening.
It's a lot of lives.
So we don't take it for granted. I mean, sometimes I guess we come off like we shoot from the cuff. And I'll be honest, sometimes we do shoot from the cuff. Uh, but there is, some kind of educational decisions going on back here to affect, a lot of lives.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, Bree, if you don't have a proper team in place to perform whatever task that's set in front of them, then you're almost always subject to failure.
Mhm.
And Electrolink has done a good job over the years. And I don't pretend to hold all the answers to how Ernie did it, but the longevity that we have at Electrolink, I mean, our project management staff, which is the pendulum of the whole company, that project management staff, our
Mhm.
average tenure right now is like 17.5 years.
That's awesome.
There's a reason for that, right? The reason is it's the culture and the values and the mission that you're asking about earlier.
Mhm.
Those things keep employees here. The fact that they are here and having that team really makes mine and Ernie's job a lot easier, right?
Mhm.
absolutely.
If you don't have people managing your money on a day-to-day basis that you trust, right, then you haven't got it right from the beginning, right? And so it really is important, especially when you have branch offices scattered all over the state that you're not sitting in every day and having to trust that not only they're doing the right thing, but the people that they're leading are doing the right thing it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I say we've been fortunate. We are fortunate because we do have some really really good people. But they've been trained properly, and they the team that Electronic is just a group of people that come together to support the brand. And when you have that, when they are, carrying the brand on their shoulder, then you're able to create good, positive, productive teams, and it's necessary to run a business that works.
We started out of a garage on the side of my house, and we built that team from that to what it is today. And I don't know exactly, but I think we're somewhere around 300 employee count today. The one thing that we knew back in the beginning, and the reason I started Electric, is I knew quality would sell itself. You talk about trust from us to our employees. It's also trust from our team to our customer. When we walk into a customer's office and tell him, hey, we're up against something, this is what we suggest, and we'll give you a couple different alternatives to go to, that customer has to trust that we have his best interest in.
Yeah.
And especially if you're out of town and he's sitting back here in Houston, we're his eyes and ears, and he has to have that trust for us to make the right decision based on his welfare on that. And so that trust goes from customer to employees to management. So there's a lot of input there. That's a big word that you brought out. That's a good question on the fly there. And it means a lot to us. So I take that pretty serious.
Yeah.
When Ernie talks about making sure that the customer's taken care of, we had a discussion earlier this year, I believe, in a management meeting that we were having, that we were talking to general managers and Ernie talking to myself as well. And like, don't be so big headed to think that you're the guy that takes care of the customer every day. You're not the guy that takes care of the customer. You're the guy that takes care of the employee, and the employee takes care of the customer. And so if you settle your mind and you get your mind right about what your objective is in your particular position, and me and Ernie, our job is to take care of the employees, right? Because the employees are who take care of our customers. Anytime you lose sight of that, right, I think you're asking for challenges that are not going to be positive.
Well, I think it definitely reflects in every aspect of Electrolink, the trust that you guys have built. All right. What are some signs that it's time for a company to go into a growth phase? And how did you guys know that it was time to focus on growth here at Electrolink?
I can't speak for the entire 39 plus years of Electrolink, but in my time here at Electrolink, business is funny. And it doesn't, in our industry, it doesn't have to be Electrolink, but in our industry, when Ernie started his business, to get from $0 to $1 million is it's not easy, but you can get there pretty quick, right? But then when you try to go from $1 to $3 million, you got to put on, more overhead and more structure in place to support those dollars. And when you're in that position right there, that overhead eats up your profit. And so you could literally be doing $2.5 million, make less profit than you did when you're at $1 million, right? When Ernie could go out and pull his own cable and sell his own stuff. I mean, so it's business is cyclical. Okay. And depending on your long-term goals and your long-term objectives, it maintains that way all the way up. Now the millions become more and more, but the reality of your situation is the same. So for Electrolink, when we get to a point where we're having to add more costs, right, either to maintain or we start reducing our profit margins, right, then you have choices to make, right? It's like, okay, how are we going to maintain here for a while and stabilize, or are we going to go into a growth model to get above that? Because once you put that cost structure in place, you can manage a lot more revenue with the same people, but you have to push through that area of pain is really what it is.
Yeah,
right?
growing pains.
Yeah, and so where your cost is overriding your benefit at that time, you have to push through that, right? And so if you get in that position, for me, from a financial perspective, it's one option is to grow, right? You need to grow, you need to push through it and get back to a stabilizing number. Or the other option, which Ernie and I have exercised both over the years, right? The other option is to, just pull back a little bit, right? And stabilize and get ready for what's coming. Right. So I mean, it goes both ways.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned, I'm sitting back here thinking about, I think it was 2016 that we had a really good growth period, and we jumped out there in revenue wise, and then we struggled for several years after that to maintain that volume. And our profits went way down on that. Our revenue was up there, but the profit just went down. We had too much overhead. It just wasn't a good formula for us to work. And we made a decision to back it back down. And lo and behold, man, the profits started coming up. Our headaches kind of went away. We were just chasing bad business, and now we're doing good, profitable business. It's a lot easier to manage on that, and it just makes good sense. And so that formula we talk about, it does work that way. And it's a fine line. It's where is that threshold that you can do X amount of volume with the overhead that you have versus increasing that overhead? Is that good business that you're increasing? And that's what goes into a lot of the decisions when you're talking about growth. And a lot of the questions here are about growth and how do we handle it, and what do we see in the next several years. A lot of that goes into the decision that we're making about, is it time, is it not time, where's our overhead at, how much more can we put on without having to add additional people. And if we add additional people, is it in the right places? Does it benefit us? We don't want to overwork our people, but we want to get the most out of it, be most efficient. And efficiency is a lot of the management words that you come across. So.
And there's been times, throughout electronics history where just the change in technology forced a growth plan upon you, right? That you had to get involved in, not to get left behind. And
like when the computer came out. I remember back then. I remember when I first started, it was on a typewriter.
Yeah, I was in grade school. But
thank you.
Yeah, sometimes technology advances so quickly, that you have to adapt, and sometimes you have to grow to keep up with the technology that's going. You have to have trained people, and as technology changes, you got to continually be adapting to that. And sometimes the technology, and as fast as it grows, forces you into growth patterns that maybe you hadn't planned out, but that you got to sit back and look at it and say, hey, this is something Electrolink has to be into to maintain our customer base and provide the same quality of service that they're used to. And so sometimes you're forced into it.
When was the last time that Electrolink was in a growing phase, and did it go as planned?
Well, Bree, I think we touched on that a little bit in the last question that we had. 2019, we had an enormous amount of business come in toward the end of the year. I think it was 2016 when the business came in, and our revenue increased, and which kind of forced us into a growth plan. That business was good business. It was came at the right time. We had the amount of people to do it and work good. Where we kind of started going south on it was trying to maintain that kind of revenue, and we started chasing business that wasn't as profitable to maintain a revenue structure on it. And that's where you start losing margins on that. When you have your people, not only the business is a lower margin projects, but you're taking your core team and spreading it out across that. So when something does come in, you got to juggle that, and it just doesn't make good sense on that. So that 2019 is when we started cutting it back. We started pulling the reins back in, getting back into a good amount of business that we could handle what we had. And then COVID hit, right, in 2019, 2020, and it kind of helped us pull the reins back in it. And now we're at a point that we're ready to kind of expand again.
Yeah, that period from 2016 to 2019, I think all of us, in the leadership side, we learned a lot during that period of time, right? Because Ernie's exactly right. We had some project business hits, some big project business, and we were very successful at it. It was great, and pulled out of our Dallas market, which did really, really well. And then trying to maintain that revenue, it's almost like you're, chasing bad dollars, right? So can we hit a set revenue number out there? Sure, we can do it, right? We can go get the business, but it's got to be smart business. And I think that's what we mostly learned during that time is like, we don't have to be the biggest, but we want to be the best, right? And not only for our customers, but for our employees as well, right? Because employees don't like to go out there and work day in and day out, putting in 10-hour days in 110-degree weather,
Mhm.
just to not ever have a chance to be successful, right? And so, I think we learned a lot during that period of really chasing bad business
Well, it's almost like you're chasing your tail.
right.
There's no end to it. You just keep going around.
It wasn't.
Yeah. Top end revenue, well, that's great to talk about, but it's all about the bottom end. And to me, or to us, the quality is the number one thing that we have to maintain. We have to maintain a good quality product out there for our customers. Makes them come back and want us.
Yeah.
We have our employees are prideful in what they put in out there. And it's a good formula for success.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like Ernie said, I mean, going through COVID, I think we successfully managed our way through that, but there wasn't anything normal or easy about that. When it come down to trying to adjust our business to the environment we were in, not that COVID was a good thing, because I would never say that, but it kind of just fit in with what we were doing.
Yeah.
So taking some of the revenue, the contract losses, the customers pulling back business, and some of that stuff that was forced upon us actually kind of fit into our business plan. Maybe not so much as it did during COVID, but it kind of fit into our business plan. It really gave us time as a leadership team to really evaluate our business and where we were at. And,
Absolutely. I think it also enabled us to figure out how to do more with less.
yes,
So not only did you have jobs pulling back on it, but then you had the problem of coming to work. I mean, you had individuals that didn't want to come into the office. So what did we do? We learned how to work from home on that. Now we're kind of getting them back away from that and we're moving back into the office. But I don't think the office environment will ever be like it was.
Yeah.
Because there's several out there that are more productive at home. I mean, you have to be pretty disciplined to work. It's easy to go watch a noon television show and not be at work. So you got to be pretty disciplined on that. And I think for the big part, all our people are adjusted and doing really well with it.
Good.
So there was, like, I agree with Rob. I will never say COVID was a good thing, but it did teach us some valuable knowledge of how to manage business, to do more with less.
yeah. So that was a tough time for everybody, including the employees, and it wasn't just the contract losses. I mean, we'd be working on a project, and one guy get COVID, and the whole team was sent home. Right, and
It
so
didn't even have to be our guy. It could be the sheet rocker.
Right.
Shut the job.
Yeah. And so, so from a customer perspective too, even the people that were still spending money and keeping businesses like ourselves moving, I mean, even for them, I mean, it was a challenge all the way around. We were able to, we're financially stable. We had all the abilities that we needed to get through that. And so, and it is post COVID now. And I certainly don't want to look back on it,
Not at all.
No.
But if we're talking about, business strength and growth and everything like that, we were fortunate that we already had in our minds and our business plan that we were going to pull back a little bit. And although it pulled back more than we were comfortable with, it wasn't, a shock like it could have been with some other businesses, because it was already part of our business plan at the time to do so.
I think some of the big shock that we had was sanitizing equipment. Whoever thought of a construction company, they had to go out and sanitize the ladders and drills and stuff that we were using. A lot of that was a whole new giddy up for all of us.
Yeah, we had a
Wow.
vodka distillery making our sanitizer.
And a vodka
Out of College Station, I
goodness.
believe.
was out of Ohio.
Wow.
The guy I went to high school with, he had a distributorship in Ohio. And I said, hey, vodka's real close to this stuff. And he goes, yeah, you're right. And we were buying it in 55-gallon drums.
Oh my god.
Because you couldn't get it down here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or anywhere, really, for that matter. And
Wow.
so, and it did have a little taint of vodka smell to it.
What the best smelling stuff, but it didn't trip.
But it worked.
Sanitized at work, and
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
bought off on it.
Wow.
But,
That's wild.
it's just back to I think we alluded to it earlier about shaking and moving on the fly.
Yeah.
Some of it's got to be done, and you just hope you make the right decision at the right time.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, are there any risks to a company staying stagnant for too long and not focusing on growth or what's next for their business?
I think there's a lot of risk in that. The if you're not growing, controlled growth,
Mm-hmm.
you have employees that get stagnant or they feel like they're at a dead end road. You want to always give them the ability to improve. But you have to control that growth. If you go wild, then it's no good for nobody.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't, then you're starting to lose good employees and you're retraining new people coming in to do a job that you got to get individuals that's already trained. And that's a hard level right there. So some jobs that are out there, they're going to pay X and that's all they're going to pay. And they'll get a cost of living increase, but they don't get the big jumps as you do as in furthering your education or getting better at a task that's out there, or even changing what you do and moving into another area. So that's the biggest hurdle, I think, at that point.
Yeah, I think, business in general is risky no matter what phase of
Yeah.
it you're in. I think one of the biggest risks that we have, and you talk about a growth phase, that growth could be revenue, it could be different technology, it could be different things
Mm-hmm.
that a company gets into. But I think where you don't want to become stagnant is in your workforce, right? You don't want your workforce to become stagnant. Stagnant equals complacency, and complacency doesn't equal quality and consistency. It's just not the way it is. So I think consistently challenging your employees can grow a company, and whether it be revenue or different technologies or different educational resources that you may have. I think growing your employee is the number one thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then taking that momentum to grow in an area that the business has as part of their long-term goals is the best thing you can do.
A lot of times the growth is not just growing revenue; it's growing knowledge.
All right. So when heading into, I guess, a growth phase, how important is it to have a clear plan or timeline?
So, yeah, that's a tricky question. So, a timeline is easy.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty easy. We can set a timeline on anything.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty focused. Ernie's pretty focused. I typically hit a timeline. The problem is in the plan, right? The timeline is the easy part. The planning is the hard part. We've never gone any sort of growth pattern or model or objective where we didn't have a plan. But in what we try to do is we try to set broad parameters on that plan,
Mm-hmm.
right? We start with big, bold 1, 2, and 3, and we'll have some objectives that we got to hit in order to move into the next phase.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that you can guarantee is you're going to be 50% wrong 100% of the time of getting from that plan from A all the way down. It's just the world don't work that way. There's going to be challenges that come up that you didn't expect. There's going to be inadvertent circumstances that are created throughout the change that you didn't foresee. And so I think having the plan is extremely important. Sticking to the plan is important too, but how you get there is a fluid operation. Because things change. And
Well, you can't be scared of changing that plan. Right. Like you're saying, you put bullet points out there. By the time you get to your first bullet point, 2 and 3 might totally be out the door. You're going to have to come up with new ones on it. And I think a lot of people get into the mindset that, no, this is the plan. We're going to do this. We're going to go all the way through it and it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't really go that way. We all know that stuff changes.
Yeah.
And it changes probably more rapidly than we care to see it does. But you can't be scared of getting those bullet points and knowing that, like Rob just said, 50% of the time you're going to be 100% wrong. So, put them out there. It's good to have it. It all looks good on paper. But reality is you're going to have to shake and move as you go along with it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is if you try to over define your objective, right? Not the objective itself, but the path to your objective, right? If you try to over define it, then you end up just trying to check boxes and not paying attention to the reality that's going on around you, right? Because business, yeah, you got to check boxes, but you got to be smart about it, right? And if you try to over define the path, I think that it complicates the issue, and then you're just sitting there trying to achieve, all the little A, B's, and C's, and not achieving the one, two, threes.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that yeah, I think, as Ernie, as long as we work together now, I mean, if nothing else, we learn to adapt, because that's just the way the business is. It's not always the most comfortable place to be, but it is just the reality of it. And so I think having a plan is important, having a timeline is important, but being adaptable and being able to maneuver is just as important.
Okay.
One of the ways that we work, and I think Rob and I work together really well at this, obviously, or we wouldn't be where we're at today, is when we come up with a growth pattern, when we come up with, this is where we want to end up, we have to get our employees involved in that. You talked about trust. That's where it comes in, the trust in your employee and the employee trust in us. We have a point that we want to get to. How do you get down that road to it? And that's where the plan comes in, the change in the plan along the way. Because you got to have everybody's buy off on it to get your goal. And you have to be willing to take some ideas and try. And even if they're an idea you don't think that's going to work 100%, sometimes it's good to allow that decision to be put in place for a while, just because an individual is pretty important to you, and they ask you for it. They throw it out there, and you kind of know, man, it's not going to work, but it's good for them.
Yeah.
When I was in the electrical field and I had apprentices come on board with me, there was a lot of things that they would come in, and I'd just tell them, I said, okay, how would you do this? And he'd come up with an idea. Well, it wasn't exactly how I wanted to get it done, but it was pretty close. And boy, does it boost his ego to do it his way. And that's how you teach them. That's how they learn. They can't be scared of coming out and saying it. Now, did I want him to lie my day out every day? No. But I did let him come out and put his input in it. And then sometimes I'd say, that's pretty good, but we're not doing it that way.
Yeah.
But I go back to that trump card, no pun intended there. I keep holding that. And sometimes you got to throw it out.
Yeah, I think one of the best things about Electrolink is just that we don't have anybody in a leadership position that's so bullheaded to think that they know everything all the time. And so, and being able to have good, intelligent conversation, right? And not, because there are times, there probably more times than there should have been. There are times when I've told Ernie, like, Ernie, I don't think I agree with that, And he's like, all right, well, then come up, you've got a better solution, And so, and that works the same way around the entirety of the state and the relationships that we have. I don't have to be right all the time, but come up with a solution for us, right? Let's talk about it, and then we can decide which way to go. And I think having that working relationship with your teams, at no matter what level of the company you are, is important. And I think that's what makes electronic work a lot of the times, especially when we're going through change or growth.
Yeah, I don't know if I alluded to it earlier in this conversation, but we hire our employees for their opinions. I want to hear their ideas. I don't need a yes person. I need someone that thinks on their own, that come up with good ideas. And we're open to listen to them.
I think that's important. And it's hard to find a company that does that.
Well, Ray, I'll tell you this. I worked for a lot of companies before I started electric. One of the things I did learn is a lot of ways how not to do it. There's a lot of good things out there, and I work with a lot of good people, a lot of good JWs out there. That's just not the way to do it. And it goes right back to my philosophy of quality will sell itself. And that's a big thing. And it's done us well. I still feel today we set the benchmark with everybody's trying to get there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good companies out there. There's a lot of them doing good quality work. But I think it's because of what we said in the very beginning.
Can you guys share a few of the long-term goals for Electra?
It's funny. The long-term goal, for Electrolink today is probably the same it was back in 1985 when Ernie started this business, right? The long-term goal is, to have a sustainable business by taking care of the employee, right?
Mhm.
And so that's been our priority since Ernie opened this business. It's been instilled in every person that he's allowed to be a leader at this organization. And we talked about it this morning. We talked about it yesterday, and it's just the way it is, right? So yes, you have to have sustainable business. Yes, the business has to make money. And those are important, you know. But we Ernie has built a company and trusted several of us to kind of carry on that legacy that he has for himself in the business. We're going on 40 years now. Is that uh, don't build it for your sole benefit yourself, right? Make sure that you're taking care of the employees because that's what makes up the company. Without them, there is no revenue, there is no profit, there is none of that, right? And so I think yes, we have different objectives that we're trying to hit every year. But at the end of the day, it's to build a sustainable business while giving people a good quality of life and all the employees that work here. Ernie, tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think it was easy when we first started. It was, myself and a few of the other ones. Some of them are still here. Doing the business, it was pretty easy to go out and achieve the goals that we wanted to set forth because there's only 3 or 4 of us out there. The hardest thing to do is to take that at a small scale and enlarging that to the scale we're at today and to maintain. So I guess the top goals there in that question is maintaining what we originally started with. Quality sells itself, good, happy life, the happy employee, the customer that says, hey, this is who we want to do our business because of all these things. And to pull that into a scale that we have today, it does take trust, buzzword you used earlier, and it does take good people to do that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we keep trying to push out there. It's to keep that ball rolling in the right direction. I think we've done a very good job of it. Always room for improvement, but I think we're achieving our goals and achieving them, kind of rapidly there. One of the things that I do know, you talk about, and I think a lot of times we've alluded to being able to change on the fly or to be able to make decisions based off other people. Here's what I do know. I don't know everything. I'm the first one to admit it. What I do know is probably somebody that knows whatever the problem is, they have the solution to it. I'm not scared to reach out. I'm not scared to listen to somebody. I never have been. I don't claim to know it. I do claim to know, but I will find a solution.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. Thank you guys so much for coming on to today's episode. I think that's just about everything. So thank you guys.
Hey, Marie. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Ernie and Rob and about their experience and the things that they learned over the years running a business and helping a business grow. Don't forget to follow the Link podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube so you don't miss out on any episodes. And we will see you guys again next season. Thanks for listening.